Today we're going to go over the basic steps of compression testing an engine. I know this isn't a GS, but all the same principles would apply. Here we have a standard compression gauge kit. This is the actual compression gauge. It measures compression in pounds per square inch. Basically, a compression test just tells you whether or not the engine is mechanically capable of doing work. If you get a good reading here, you know that the engine's valves and pistons are moving and everything in the engine's doing its thing. It doesn't necessarily guarantee that the engine's going to run. To do a test on a GS, all the parts you need are the gauge, the connection hose, and a 12mm adapter. We'll start by preparing our gauge. First, take the connector hose and your 12mm adapter and screw them together. The actual gauge has a quick disconnect, so we can take it on and off easily and thread this in and out of the engine. On a running bike, your first step would be to start it up and let it run and heat the engine up to give you a good reading. Since this bike doesn't have a carburetor, it obviously doesn't run. This test is still useful though if you're ever going to look at a parts bike or something that's in non-running condition. If you bring a compression gauge and a good battery, you can do this test to at least know if the engine has a chance of working. To prepare the bike for the test, start by removing both spark plugs. With the spark plugs removed, the engine can now turn freely, which will be a little bit easier on our starter motor and give you a good reading. Since this is a non-running bike, I'm going to go ahead and run the starter motor until the oil light goes out to make sure everything's lit up good for the test. If your bike is a running bike, you've already heated up, this step's unnecessary. Take the hose with the 12mm adapter and thread it into the spark plug hole until it seats. With the hose properly installed, we'll attach our gauge. We'll run our starter motor for a few seconds until the gauge quits rising. You want to hold your throttle wide open while you do that, which doesn't matter on this bike, so there's no carburetor, but let's pretend. Then you want to take and record this reading and check the other side of the engine and compare the two. Here's a close-up of our compression gauge. And you can see we got about 160 psi on that one. With our gauge hooked up to the other cylinder, we'll repeat the test. This cylinder has about 155 psi. Now that we have our readings, we can check it against the specifications for the model we're working on. For a GS 500, it's 142 to 199 psi, with 112 psi minimum and a 28 psi variance allowed between cylinders. Hopefully this tutorial was helpful, and for more great information, visit www.gstwin.com.